Okay, so I'm going to talk about the lab that you're going to be doing this week, which is a lab on gases. So in this lab, there's sort of two goals that you need to focus on. One is that you're going to calculate the molar mass or molecular weight of CO2 gas using experimental parameters. And then the second part of this that you can do at home is to compare the molar mass that you get experimentally to the molar mass that you get theoretically from the periodic table and compare the percent error in accuracy of those two values. Let's first talk about how we can get the molar mass of any gas using experimental values and what experimental parameters we would need to collect in order to get the molar mass. So we can start with the ideal gas equation, which is PV equals nRT. And remember that N, number of moles, is really just mass over molar mass. So we can write it as PV equals M over M RT. And then we just need to isolate the molar mass variable on one side and then everything else on the other side. And the equation would look like this. Since we're talking about calculating the molar mass of CO2, all the parameters have to be parameters of CO2. So in other words, in this case, we're going to have to collect mass of CO2, temperature of CO2, pressure of CO2, and volume of CO2. And then using R, the ideal gas constant, and doing the correct calculation would be able to get the molar mass of CO2. So going back to the equation that I just derived, basically there are four experimental parameters you would need to measure or collect in order to be able to get your molar mass. You're going to need your pressure, temperature, volume, and mass. So the way this is going to be done is you're going to collect your CO2 in a flask, okay, through a reaction that I'll describe in the next video. And what you have to do is measure the pressure of the CO2, temperature, volume, and mass of CO2 that is in that flask. Let's first look at pressure. Now, pressure of CO2 is actually quite easy to measure because in order for the CO2 to stay equilibrated with the atmospheric pressure, the pressure of the CO2 in the flask has to equal the pressure of air outside of the flask. And the pressure of air can be measured relatively easily using a barometer that we have in the lab. So when you are ready to make this measurement, you should come and talk to me and I can show you how to read the barometer. Now, temperature is another easy parameter to measure because if I want to know the temperature of the CO2 in here, the only thing I need to do is take a thermometer, put it inside the flask that contains the CO2 and look at the temperature that is given by the thermometer. Now, it turns out that measuring the volume and mass is not that easy. We have to understand a little bit the difference between the density of gases and the density of solids and liquids. So what I would do is in the next video explain the difference in densities among those substances and then later on go back to calculating volume and mass.